Hello.
Hello, how are you doing?
Good, good. Just got back. I will check in now so everyone knows this is, of course, really me. But
Yeah,
I may pop in and out of video just so I can eat a little something really quick.
yeah, okay. Well, so Joe said he'd try to make it. Jude said she would definitely make it. So we have a quorum for sure as soon as we have Jude. And I have to go pull up the document. So I'm while you're getting your dinner ready, I'm pulling up the document here. I've got
All
to
right.
go.
If
I
you
had
if you haven't sent it, right? Because I didn't see a new
Well, no, I was
correspondence.
going to share it online. I mean, it's whatever I sent last is what we're looking at. So I did not resend it. No, but we just want to look at what the planning board said.
Yeah,
And
when did you so you did send that already? That's what I'm saying. I didn't see
well,
updated correspondence.
okay, well, let me go back. Yeah, and I'm getting my own. I got sidetracked a few minutes ago when I was trying to get all my things up, and so I didn't have all my things up. So give me a moment to go get up what I need to get up. And hang on a sec. And I'm using a different computer from what I've been using, so I've got to bring up the town website. Uh, so I'm just signing into the town. Um, and let me see what I've sent out. And we're still kind of waiting for Jude anyway, I think. Okay.
Just so you know, yeah, so I've just did a search and I have something about the fence law, but not from our planning board. So,
Right.
and I know you're
So,
gonna pull it up, but if you wouldn't mind sending it over so I can read along here, that'd be awesome.
sure. So just a moment.
Take your time.
I want to find uh, I got to get to the right, have to get to the right email here. So we're trying to get to, um, I have a lot about the fences law, and I'm going back even further. Fence law, scenic overlay. Okay, so I'm going back quite a ways here. Um, so I found my note, and I'm pretty sure I sent everybody ZRC. Um, okay. Yeah, let me just go make sure I'm checking Zoom to make sure that nobody's waiting to get in. I'll admit, there we go. We'll admit Jude. Hi, hey, there she is. Yay. So we have Connor. The iPad A16 is Connor. And I'm looking for emails that I've sent you all previously about the scenic overlay. But I will give you a quick update on the fences. So I think it's on tomorrow's agenda because Bill and I did work together on the seeker. That was the last piece. So for the fences law, It was, we had the beginning of the public hearing. Bill suspended the public hearing at the, as the chair. And then the idea was we can come back and then reopen the public hearing, or it's still open kind of basically. And then there were no comment that, there's one or two comments, but nothing that was an issue with the fences law. So we got the seeker in place. So we're really all set to go ahead and move that forward. So that should have no trouble moving forward this month and hopefully even tomorrow. So that's a quick update on the fences. And I'm looking for the planning board. Because I thought I had sent an email to everybody after I had been to the planning board. So let me just. Okay. So sorry for, but I'm trying to, because I thought I had given a response. I thought I had sent everybody my update after I've been to the Woodstock Planning Board. So let me just go, I'm still looking here. Fences. Yeah, I might not have sent you the thing about the planning board feedback. I might have just been planning to talk about it. So let me just go back and make sure we're looking at the latest copy of the law. Okay. So I had the documents that I have are dated 6/22. I'm just making, I'm sorry for talking to myself here, but anyway. 0622 law and side by side. So I'm going to go ahead and forward this to you both. Honor. And Joe Bellick. And somehow I sent things to Julia Blelock rather than Joe Bellick earlier today. But she was a pretty good sport about it. So anyway.
It happens.
Okay, documents. There we go. So, and Connor had asked that I forward the documents, which I will. And then I'm also going to download. Open file. Oh, sorry. So that was my responses to the planning board. And sorry. Yeah. So what happened is I had something come up where I had to focus on something right before the meeting when I was going to pull up everything. So sorry for not getting this done before the meeting. Anyway, so there's the side-by-side document, which was the latest copy of what, so I can tell you, and I'm going to do a file save as. I'm going to enable editing first off. And then I'll share my screen. So side by side. And this is, we're into September already. 9/08. There we go. Yay, already. So I think I'm ready to share. Whoop, don't want to do that. There we go. And I don't see Joe. Joey said he thought he was going to try to join, but he had not. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we'll just talk about. So I think I didn't email you. I thought I had, but I'm not going to keep looking for it because I've got the document and we'll just start with that. So the two things, and one of them was pretty easy. Oh, your changes were saved but not committed because the server is too busy. I don't know about that. Upload pending. I wasn't trying to upload anything, which is very odd. I was just trying to do a save as. Oh, I'm hooked into OneDrive, and so it's trying to save it to OneDrive, but that's okay that it hasn't done that yet. And I just want to. So that's that. Let me go that. All right.
So I
Yeah.
know it's been a while since we met. For me, summer was absolutely crazy busy, but
Yep.
the I remember us going through this planning board document.
Hmm.
Maybe we didn't complete it.
No, no,
And
we did. We did.
okay, so do we have, and so, sorry, I'm a little confused.
Yeah.
Where are we going to be going through
Okay.
the,
Where we are is we had totally gone through the planning board document. So what I sent you two files just now. One file was what the planning board asked us to do and it included my notes and read about what we did do. So we incorporated their comments, but then there were two things they still didn't. So, well, let me go back first off and I'll tell you what they didn't like. So I am sharing my screen. So if you look at what they have and we scroll down here, um, let's pick a product that disagrees. So they didn't, uh, so
well, this
we,
is still the document back from June, right? I
well,
mean,
yeah, it is. Yeah. Cause we haven't met for a while. So hang on a sec. Okay. So what they didn't like, so they didn't like one thing they didn't like, which is I think pretty easy to fix, was when they talked about inconspicuous or prohibition of development. That was of the two things we're going to talk about now. One of them was this, where we said we adjusted some words but left some other words. Well, what their issue was, and let me go to it, section A1D, and I'm kind of getting myself back into it as well. So section A1D, let me go find it.
of 26066.
Yeah, so hang on. Yes, there we go. Thank you. 26066 A1D.
Mm-hmm.
What they didn't like about this is they is the way we have it worded. Now, this is a side-by-side document, and to the right is what it was, and to the left has what it is now with what we did because the last of what the planning board said, and we were trying to resolve their concern. But when they read D, the prohibition of development along and or projecting above ridge lines and the restriction of development at other visually prominent locations so that development is as visually inconspicuous as possible when seen from a distance from lower altitudes. What they didn't like is they saw the sentence as being confusing because it talks about prohibition, but then talks about how you can do it. And what I said was over here, what the black is over here is this is the way the law always was. And I did say, well, we just didn't change the way it was. And they said, well, we still don't like it. We don't like it that item D starts out with prohibiting things and then tells you how you can do it. Well, if it tells you how you can do it, then you're not really prohibiting it. They didn't like the word prohibition because they found it confusing to prohibit it and then tell you how to do it. So we really can solve that by just changing the word prohibition and saying, well, we're the restriction of development. If we refer to restriction rather than the prohibition, then we're saying we're restricting it, but we're not prohibiting it. And therefore, it's not they know how to enforce that. If we, but if when they say we prohibit it, and then here's how you can do it, how do they, as the planning board, enforce that? Because, you can't prohibit it and then tell you how you can do it. It's not really prohibited. So their issue was the word prohibition. So,
Am I muted? No, I'm not.
no, no,
Look
I
at
can
that.
hear you.
Okay. So I hear you. I don't disagree with that. I don't love getting rid of the word prohibition because it refers specifically to along the ridge lines
Mhm.
and then goes on to describe
Oh, the other visually prominent locations.
other visually prominent location. And discouragement is a very bad word. That is to me the one, to replace, and replacing that with the restriction of development to me makes a lot of sense. The only thing I'm saying is that the first part of that sentence to me stands on its own and the rest of it applies to the second part.
Okay.
Which that's how I've read that in the past.
Okay. So let me just, and now you said something else was a bad word, and I don't see that word.
Discour
Oh, discouragement.
Discouragement.
Oh, you don't like that.
You already replaced it,
We've already replaced the word discouragement. Right, that
and
was
that
over there.
and that I think total completely agree with.
Okay,
That was whenever we saw that in the planning board, we always cringed a little
okay.
bit.
So what I should probably do then, um, is stop this and make it a sentence, uh, and say in addition,
That's fine.
the restriction. So if we do that, because that way the first sentence does stand on its own. And I'm gonna make this red. Okay. So okay, and let me see how this leads in to make sure that we're still making it fit. The proposed development should include the following measures. The prohibition of development along and or projecting above ridge lines. In addition, the restriction of development at other visually prominent locations so that development, so that development is as visually inconspicuous as possible when seen from a distance from the lower altitudes. These measures preserve tree lines, forest canopies. Okay. All right. So I think that that should solve, because they viewed that as all going together about, you say you prohibit it and then you say, well, now you can still do it. And so I think that that solves it, because now you're saying you prohibit this development along and projection above ridge lines, and then restrict development other locations as visually inconspicuous as possible.
I
Um,
feel like it keeps the strong language and create and sort of reinforces this buffer zone we've been talking about.
right.
If Jude, if you agree, that's my only.
Yeah. And Jude, you are on mute, so hopefully you know you're on mute.
I know.
Okay.
Yes, I agree.
Okay.
I did not want to see the prohibition go away, so I think this solves the problem.
Okay.
It clarifies it. I think it's good.
Yeah. Okay.
And hello, Jude. I'm sorry, I was eating before. I was on mute, so hello.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll just tell the planning board that's what we did. To pay the broke the sentences. Okay. Okay. So the other thing is going to be harder for us to do. And that is, yeah, this whole thing, the whole maintenance thing. They didn't like, so my view is we need to figure out some way to say, hey, you're allowed to do maintenance on your property. I mean, what I've said before, and I even took into the planning board meeting. I mean, what I've said before is, you have a maple tree and it drops 1,000 seeds, and then as each one sprouts, not all 1,000 of them sprout, but as the seeds sprout, you got a tree. It might be an inch tall, but it's still a tree. It's not a bush. It's not a, whatever. It's not a flower. It's still a tree. So if we say, hey, you can't take any trees out, well, if you just had 1,000 seeds drop, you ought to be able to clean that up. So, and in fact, I have 2 pots on my deck because I had a maple tree in my yard and it dropped seeds. And I had 2 petunia pots on my deck and I got like a dozen maple trees growing up out of it. And I took it in and I said, yeah, this is case in point. See, all these seeds are popping up and, anyway. So my point is, we need to say something they didn't like that. They didn't like this, what we added, and I think Connor probably never really liked it, but anyway, what's in there now, an SUP is required for approval to maintain trees and or existing views. Planning board will make their SUP determination and, and they want no part of the planning board having anything to do with an SUP on maintenance. And some properties in the scenic overlay actually do already have an SUP, because depending on when they were built, they might have had an SUP. So some already do have an SUP that says, here's what your property should look like. But a lot of them get ignored. I mean, it's just reality is what it is. So, and some don't have an SUP anyway, because they're there before the whole zoning law went into effect. So that being said, because as one person said to me, well, maybe you can just maybe you can just deal with the SUP that already exists for the property. Well, that's not really how it's kind of not really done that way. And some properties haven't gotten SUP because again, they were built before. So, and the planning board didn't like about the idea of having everybody in the scenic overlay who wants to have maintenance permission go do an SUP for that purpose. They didn't want any part of that. So I'm hoping the three of us can come up with some words that we all agree with that says, and it probably starts out, well, I guess we have a couple of choices. One way is to say, hey, it starts out, we're putting the stake in the ground now. You have to maintain, you can't ruin the viewscape any more than it is today, which means, hey, if you already have a view, you get to keep it. But if you don't already have a view, you don't get to have one. If people are going to be able to see you from when they're driving around or from the other mountainside, whatever. So one way is to say, hey, look, the stake in the ground starts now. You can't be taking down any more trees than you've already got in terms of things that affect the viewscape. But it should be clear that you can be weeding your garden out of these.
I think I mean, I understand, and I think you've articulated this point before, but the language that we've put in there in other sections, and even this one, I mean, maybe we can go back and look at what it says, what we're replacing that is so problematic. But, again, I understand your maple example too, but there are many other mitigating factors that both, not just a certified arborist, if we need to add language that says, there like regular maintenance can be done, the whole thing is just needs to be in service of pointing out to some extent delineating and prohibiting any cutting and specifically development in those ridge lines and escarpments. I mean, so what can you scroll up and show us what the original section H
Well,
says?
let me,
I assume it's in the right
yeah,
column.
yeah, okay, give me a second here. So what I'm thinking, um, I'm just gonna kind of fuss with this for the moment, and then I'll go back and I will do that. Okay, I think that there was no item H before, because it's all red. And let me just scroll up and see what we had. We had an item G, the minimizing of tree cutting. So G was the minimizing of tree cutting, and then we have added into that, the application is expected to avoid any non-essential tree cutting, modification, or removal, regardless of size, in the visible canopy of the scenic overlay. Activities to be avoided include, but are not limited to, clear cutting, topping, limiting of any practices that would harm the health of these trees. Non-essential tree cutting should be understood to mean trees having no fundamental impact to the buildability of the lot. But I do think, so that's what was that. So there was no H before, because on the side by side, there was no H before.
I mean, that there is G.
This, exactly, but you asked what was H before,
Yeah.
and my answer
Okay.
is it was non-existent.
Oh, well, what is it just because we added something there? Or I don't think we added all of that as
Well,
it's,
you were never in favor of it, but we did, kind of, yes. Sorry about that. You never really liked it, but but then you eventually said, okay, I'll put up with it because we want to get this thing moved along. So
Well,
I had worked out this wording. I was in with Melissa, the planning board secretary, and I had talked to Judy Kerman, and the two of them, and I had talked to Butch, and they seemed to think that this approach of the planning board doing SUPs to have control over what people did and didn't do in the scenic overlay for maintenance, they thought that was an okay idea. But then when these words, which I know I worked with these other people on, when it actually went officially to the planning board, the official response back was, no, we don't like it. But I want to ask, as I kind of take some things out, that what if we kept, and I'm gonna bold this so you can read it a little better, because I knocked out a bunch of stuff. What if we said something to the effect of property owners will be permitted to preserve the building area envelope that was approved for property, maintain a clear, if we only kept this, we're not allowing people to go crazy. So, but if all we said was property owners will be permitted to preserve the building envelope area that was approved for the property, maintain a clearing around their buildings to comply with fire safety, and to implement selective cutting that will enhance the health of the forest and we can even take around implemented selective cutting because that maybe that leads to bad ideas. But if we just said, let me just undo that and let me just, for the sake of discussion. Okay. So what if all we said about maintenance was property owners will be permitted to preserve the building envelope area that was approved for the property and maintain, I'll add an and here, and maintain a clearing around their buildings to comply with fire safety.
I mean, to me, it feels redundant, to be honest with you. I mean, it's one part of the law telling you to follow the other part of the law, which is, an approved envelope of a building.
Well,
The other, again, with the fire safety element, it was something that we did, I think, carve out specifically to say not impacting the safety and buildability of the lot. So let me just lay out an example for you and tell
let
me
me go, let me go find your,
if hold on 1 second. I'm
I want
just
to find your words first. If you're telling me we've already covered it, I want to find where we've already covered it. So if you can tell me where we already covered it, that'll help.
when we looked at the language that specifically lays out what non-essential tree cutting is. If you do a search for
Okay, I was kind of,
non-essential.
we said non-essential a couple of times.
But it's specifically defined in somewhere in 260-66 where we I think
Yeah, that's
just
okay.
were.
I'm gonna look for essential and that'll give me non-essential. Yeah, okay. So all non-essential tree cutting, including clear cutting, commercial logging, topping lemon trees or any parcel, look at this, or
What
commence
section is
engaging in
this?
any tree removal modification on any parcel, prior to see special use. Okay. All non-essential tree cutting, including clear cutting, topping.
All right, so if you look at the results page without scrolling down, the very last one, non-essential in the left column where the gray is, there you go, right there at the bottom though. Don't scroll down, just right at the bottom,
Right there,
right
okay.
there. Just click on that. All right. On the safety and buildability of the lot. Now, hear me out. And this is all I'm saying is if the applicant comes in and says, I want an X sized home with an X sized yard, and I want to build it, you know, in this part of my property. Now, this part of my property happens to be right, too close to the scenic escarpment. So the planning board under review says, well, if you want this sized lawn that you can maintain as is prescribed by, other sections of the law, you have to move the building away from the escarpment. Or you can have less lawn to mow.
Mhm.
and you can maintain less of this by being closer to the escarpment.
Mhm.
But to me, again, it feels, and if it's fine, if we just want the redundancy, I just don't get what is so problematic. I don't see how this doesn't leave room to mow your lawn and build appropriately, because the idea is, and that's the only, and I'll just say this one more time, it's when we say you have to make, you can maintain what is the approved envelope of your building. Like, to me, it's redundant. Like, that's the law. That's how that works. But if we want to say it again here, then
Yeah.
fine. What do you think? What do you guys think?
I've just, what's coming to mind for me is that what Laura said, which is some of these existing homes never went through planning board review. And those are the ones that are probably the most egregious. And there has to be something that applies to them. So maybe, that section or saying something about that.
I suppose so. I mean, I don't particularly want to go and build in a grandfather clause to this. Like, it should, I mean, where possible, I do think there should be some effort to remediate when it's needed. And I don't think there are even that many, but there are quite a few where, it's not irreparable. They're not right up on the ridge. They could do plantings, they could do screenings, which is the kind of thing that is required for remediation all the time. Common, super
Yeah.
commonplace.
So the other thing I do want to say is part of our document deals with new building and part of our document, and this is meant to deal with maintenance. So even though things may look like they're redundant because they may be over here, it might be in an area that we talked about. So I just want to reread because it's been a while since I've read this document from start to finish. So we said establish, protect, propose code standards, intent, purpose. Um, just kind of running down through here. Um,
And I'm not trying to be dismissive of the planning board. I would prefer, to be honest, that they come and, or somebody come and as a liaison and like articulate those concerns maybe a little more, but like, to me, I just don't see it. Like, there are other parts of the law that set, that they have to go to the planning board. They have to get planning board approval when you need an SUP. You have to go to the building department to get a permit.
yeah.
And so if someone shows up and they say, "Oh, this view was here, but it's not what got approved."
Yeah.
Again, why should that not be remediated would be my
Yeah.
question.
Well, so this is what they said about the way that the wording was. They said indefensible in court, asking for legal lawsuits. The language and suggestion is extremely problematic and not enforceable. Homeowners' desire to keep clear views has resulted in major damage to the forest canopy and the view shed. Well, we all agree with that.
Yeah,
That
that's I have the document up here. I read
yeah.
it, and
Mhm.
I was considering it as we read it. It's a little bit sporadic. They just, again, yeah, that's what part of the language? The whole thing? Like, what are we?
Well, H, they didn't like the whole, all of H that said, if you want to maintain your property in scenic overlay, you have to get an SUP with the planning board so that they can give your guidance and your rules and restrictions.
See, and again, so they want, okay, just to be clear, they want added to H.
No, no, they didn't want H. They didn't like H at all. They didn't like having to be involved in doing SUPs for people. They didn't want governing how people did their maintenance of their scenic overlay property. They didn't want to have any part of the maintenance. They wanted us just to put some words in about maintenance that didn't involve them giving people a green light. And I don't
Uh,
even know if they care that if we have stuff in about maintenance, but they didn't like having something in maintenance that involved them having to um to be yeah. But I'm just rereading this document kind of from start to finish just to see if I get any other thoughts.
Well, if it's not them, then who would?
Well, nobody then. I think that they're hoping that we just have a law that whatever we say about maintenance stands on its own without requiring the planning board to get involved in maintenance.
So who,
Well, I guess the building department, right? The
I
zoning enforcement officer, if we have something about, here's what you're allowed to do to maintain your property, and they don't do it, it would be the ZEO, zoning enforcement officer, that would get involved.
all I can say is I don't think we should take it out. I think if that's how like if that's how they feel, I think they need to be a little bit more specific and articulate about it just to be. I'm sorry if that's unkind. I don't mean to be, but it's uh in one literally in one sentence it says this is indefensible, and then it says and then follows up with the sort of predicate need that is
The need to
drive
control.
that is driving the language.
Right, yeah,
and
well, right. But
and
let me,
and I did, and again I just disagree. So if in the absence of that feedback, I would rather see it go to the town board, especially sorry, sorry, my phone just went on. I would rather see it go to the town board than kick it back and forth again with the planning board over this. I think that there's already a whole nother set of review that needs to happen, and I don't. Ed Sanders didn't find it problematic. I don't find it problematic.
well, Ed Sanders never saw item H. Yeah,
Well,
that they,
I mean, he was part of, I mean, again, I'm pretty sure that in the process of writing this, H was something that we added. It may have been G at one point when if we added it from scratch,
Mhm.
but when we sat in Maria's and talked about the definition of non-essential tree cutting, and this
Mhm.
was it. This
Well,
is
the
what.
yeah, he was involved when we were talking about non-essential tree cutting, but he was not involved when we talked about how do we handle maintenance.
Now, and let me back this up one more time to say, when we say maintenance, we're not talking about just like mowing your lawn that was approved and is on a paper somewhere that Butch or the CEO signs off on, right? I mean, are we talking about tree maintenance, like
What, but again, when I mow my, and I'm being too, what's the right word? I'm being too particular here. I'm sure I'm being too, literal. I am sure I am being too literal here. But the fact of the matter is, if we have a law that says you cannot do any non-essential tree cutting, and I have this 2 inch maple tree growing out of my lawn because my tree dropped 1,000 seeds, and I've got all these 2 inch maple trees around my lawn, and I mow over them. I just cut a tree because it, in fact, is a tree. It might be 2 inches tall, but
Well,
it's a tree.
here's what I would say. I would say that falls under safety because let's be honest, what like, if it would impact the safety and usability of your yard, which was approved and signed off on again for that use. The planning board is all about use. So
Yeah,
it affects the safety of the use to
mm,
have a bunch of trees haphazardly growing out of your lawn.
sure.
I mean, and that to me is, I don't think that's too galaxy brained to need a caveat in there, but maybe it is. Maybe I need to check myself.
so my understanding is that when this law was proposed, there were several property owners who complained that they wanted to maintain their view. Am I right about that, Laura? That's how this whole boondoggle came up, right?
That's
Well,
what I remember.
yeah. I mean, yes, I did get feedback from somebody who said they had gotten feedback from people who were concerned that this did not allow them to maintain what they had.
Right.
All well, I know about anonymous, but it was all not sent publicly. It was not
Correct. It
presented
was by people that
publicly.
did not want to speak publicly. Correct.
And I do think that is important. I'm sorry to say. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But the thing is, again, if I think that is the kind of thing that should be left to the courts. It's not for us to make every contingent possible of what can go, awry in these things. Like somebody if somebody goes and in the 60s made their thing before the law was made, and they have a document showing the plot is where it's supposed to be, they're grandfathered in. Nothing we can do about that. Odds are, though, for the most egregious cases and the ones that, are more recent, it either won't reflect that, or if it does, again, that's mud on our face,
Well,
like it.
so what is wrong? Well, hang on a sec. Um, well, I'm just going to reword this a little bit more.
Can I say one more thing?
Yes.
Which is, if they're arguing that this would not hold up in court, why don't we just consult an attorney?
I remember
I mean,
wanting to do that like 2 or 3 years ago, and I think Bill put the kibosh on it because he didn't want to pay for one.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too is I guess I was hoping we could find something here. Um, and I'm kind of trying to, um, this is, um,
I think maybe what the real clarity should be is that the SUP should apply for when they want to do maintenance within essentially tree fall of the escarpment,
well, hang on.
right? That and
I'm, yeah, I'm just trying to rework this a little bit to see if we can come out with something that would make sense. Um, gee, what's that? I just lost it. Where did it go? Where did it go? I got too many things. I'm gonna stop sharing for a minute because I have to go find it again. Hang on, I've got too many windows up. There we go. I found it.
I mean, for clarity, right? I mean, the goal of all this is to create clear boundaries of when and where, certain actions in the scenic overlay get triggered. I don't want to, obviously, we can't have the planning board getting, you know, can I mow my lawn SUPs, but if we say X, feet, I forget what we used in the other section offhand, but um, any maintenance that could fall into the escarpment, as in, let's say you have a tree on your side of the escarpment, but it is tall enough that if it fell, it falls that way. I don't know. That to me is probably what we're talking about.
Well, hang on a sec. I just, okay. So I kind of reworked. So you can ignore what's above here because here's what I'm thinking. So what if what we said about maintenance was this? While ensuring preservation of the tree canopy and view shed from below and from a distance, property owners are permitted to preserve the building envelope area that was approved for the property and maintain a clearing around their building to comply with fire safety. So we're addressing fire safety and we're addressing they had something approved for the building envelope, but they also need to be ensure the preservation of the tree canopy and view shed from below and from a distance. So what would happen if we had words? If we said that about maintenance, how do we feel about that? It doesn't involve the planning board having to do an SUP for every property. It just says you have to ensure the preservation of the tree canopy and view shed. You have to preserve that, but you can preserve the building envelope that was approved and maintain and clean around the building to comply with fire safety. So you gotta
I
preserve.
think I think one thing we should include with this
Mm.
is a recommendation, and maybe you can attach this as a note somewhere that we send to the town board to just consider getting an arborist or someone to say what the sort of safety envelope of that canopy would be, to the point where we're saying, because we don't, I do think, there is value in saying, all right, trees, is it just a clear delineation, 20 feet in from the escarpment? Is it 100 feet in? What is that number?
Yeah, and
Um,
I need to dig out. I know that I was sent a link to something, and and gosh knows if I can find it. Um, Although give me 2 seconds, because let me look in the first place I would look and see if I find it, and if I don't, I'll have to go. Um, I'll have to really look. But let me just hang on a sec. I'm looking for a document. Oh. Ah, yes, there we go. How do you like that? Um, somebody said, sent me a document, make your home fire wise and landscaping. Um, to create a landscape that makes your home less vulnerable to wildfire, think of the area around your home in zones. Zone 1 would be the closest and attached structures, and Zone 4 is the farthest away. In the area within 30 feet of your house and any attachments. And I got this from a decny.gov. So it's from the New York State DEC. If the area within 30 feet of your house and any, if zone 1 is the area within 30 feet of your house and any attachments, there should be no flammable materials or plants in the zone. Use decorative stones instead of mulch. Zone 2, a radius of 31 to 50 feet on all sides of your home, should provide space for fire equipment in the event of emergency. Keep it clean of leaves and debris, and decorate with fire-resistant, low-growing plants. Zone 3 is an area 51 to 100 feet beyond your home, and all attachments. Consider low-growing, well-spaced, fire-resistant trees in this area. And
well,
Zone 4 is the area 100 feet or more beyond your home and attached structures. This thin trees and shrubs in this area and remove highly flammable vegetation.
I mean, here's kind of my point. If 30 feet is the aperture of, say, fire safety, I'm very inclined to say that 100 feet, should be the aperture of the escarpment. That's not even that much. I mean,
Yeah.
in the scope of things, in making sure people don't get closer to that
Mhm.
is, again, I think those are the two numbers I'm interested in. And it seems like 30 feet is probably the answer to the first one, which is what is the fire safety radius. And so, that could get thrown in there somewhere,
Yeah.
maybe.
And I have to tell you, I have plants right next to my house.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. The further out you got, I was like, well, that just leaves no one in town who can, meet those.
Right. Yeah.
Um, but that being said, it, like, what we're writing right now to me applies to that 30-foot envelope. I'm not saying that it has to be a hard 30 feet. I'm just saying it's the approximate 30-foot envelope of fire safety and whatever else. The other envelope is saying that you could, maybe it's for you, it's 80 feet. It can be, I'm not saying it would, but it can be a big thing as long as it is, for this conversation's purposes, 100 feet away from the
Well,
escarpment.
so what we don't want to, so yeah, I mean, we could put in 30 feet, for example, maintain a 30-foot clearing around the building, comply with fire safety, except for the fact, what do we do about somebody who has built so close to the escarpment that if we allow them to clear 30 feet, now they've just taken out all these trees that are.
But the whole point is that this would apply to new building. I mean, if someone is grandfathered in and it's because they're that it was done beforehand and they're that close. Like no one should be building that close. And that's my whole point. If we know 30 feet
Mhm.
is that envelope, then they need to be their 30-foot radius
Mhm.
needs to end at the 100-foot line of the escarpment so that there is 100 feet of tree
Mhm.
between your yard and the scenic overlay at all times. That's the goal, right?
Yeah, 100
I'm
feet of
not saying
tree.
I'm not saying maybe 100 isn't the right one, but I'm just saying it's an easy number for right now.
Yeah. Well, so you're saying that there should be 100 feet of trees, the escarpment should have 100 feet of trees, and then you gotta be 30 feet from the other edge of the trees. Is that what you're saying?
The well, I'm putting a hypothetical here. What I'm saying is here's your home, right? And then
Mhm.
there's the radius of your buildable lot. It could
Right.
be 30 feet, it could be 80 feet, it could be
Mhm.
another 100 feet. But the
Mhm.
point is that when you get to the outer edge, when you've reached the radius, that point where you get to the edge of your buildable approved lot, it should be no less than X feet. In this case, I'm saying, let's say 100
Mhm.
from the ridge line. Like, so here's the outside of the canopy, 100 foot of trees. Your however big your yard is, it can begin there and back. Is basically my
But your yard would be behind your house, not between you and the escarpment. Your yard is behind your house.
well, I mean, who's to say, people wouldn't build the back, like the back of my house faces the valley.
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
that it depend the whole thing is wherever it faces. It's not, it doesn't matter. I'm imagining in this place, in this example, it's a radius, but all of this is just for illustrative purposes. The whole point is that whatever the projection of that yard is, it ends at a specific delineated distance from the ridge line. So what I'm saying is, yes, I can get behind this language, but the other side of this coin
Mhm.
is making sure that that we have a good number for that. And it's been so long. It's been I'll have to reread the whole thing myself too to remember if we got there. But that's the number that I am honestly again more interested in. So if it's not a problem for Jude, then I'm fine with it. I think it's a little redundant again, but what I want to make sure doesn't get forgotten is that it's less important how big the yard is and more important how far away it has to be.
Mhm.
Like all that, like they can come in and say, I want a 200-foot whatever X, Y, and Z, and they'll be like, okay, well, your plot is this big and the escarpment is here. That's a red line, that's a line in the sand, as it were. So you get 130 feet, unless you spread out here or do this, and
Mhm.
that's where
I,
rubber
I
meets the
guess
road.
I'm not I'm kind of I'm hearing you, but I'm not really absorbing, I guess. Um,
So all I'm advocating for is that we either make a note for the town board to check to review this with an arborist, or we review this document and maybe in one more session make sure that we have a solid number for the envelope of the ridgeline. And if we don't, that we especially make a note of it that this should be done. I've gotten too far from the source on this one, to be honest with you. Again, it's been so long. I think me and Ed Sanders sat this down in like 2021 or
yeah,
something like
time
that.
just keeps on going by.
But I'm just bringing it up because that's the other side of the coin for this particular thing. Okay, cool. We have an envelope for the buildings. That's fine. We need to make sure we have an envelope for the ridge line to say that you can't be X closer than this.
Well, and I'm not sure whether, right, so, I mean, that's like a whole new thing.
I'm
About saying, here's how far you have to be from the ridge line, because sometimes their property doesn't allow that because they bought a lot that is deemed a buildable lot and it's not big enough to be far enough from the ridge line. So I think that that's kind of a problem that we have.
well, I mean at what point is that not buildable then?
Well, I mean, say you have a quarter acre lot, and this is, nobody has this, I'm sure, in the scenic overlay, but hypothetically speaking, say you have a 1 acre lot and it was deemed a buildable lot way back whenever, when it was subdivided, you got this buildable lot and you're told it's buildable, but it's right on the escarpment, but it's only an acre. Well, you're allowed to build on it, but you can only build on it if you damage the viewscape,
It
because
sounds like the lot isn't buildable anymore. I mean, the laws change. I mean that, and again, I am less concerned about, please don't take this the wrong way, but hypothetical quarter acre lots than than getting ahead after, again, far too many seasons have passed, building seasons have passed us by, and we've seen the hillside become checkered.
yeah,
I
yeah.
that's what this is about.
Well, so maybe I guess what I'm curious about is, what if we simply said, because my goal is just to say something about maintenance. That was my goal. And if we just left it at this here, while ensuring preservation of the tree canopy and view shed from below and from a distance, property owners are permitted to preserve the building area envelope area that was approved for the property. Perhaps we just leave it at that, because they have to ensure preservation of the tree canopy and view shed below and from a distance.
Like I said, I'm on board with the language. I just want to make sure that we add a note somewhere to have that question answered. That's what I'm saying.
Okay,
I'm like
well, so do you want me just to send you this then? And, um, I mean, I can send you what I have here. I have some stuff crossed out.
you don't have the ability to add notes to that we can see.
Well, it's because I've got the side by side, I've kind of used up, if I add notes, it's gonna not, I mean, I can add a note in a different color. You want me to add a note in a different color?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. The whole
Oh,
thing I
okay.
just want is for at some point to tag us again or to tag the town board to ask that question.
Well, yeah. So, my apologies for not getting with the program here, but, even though I know you've explained it, I'm still not getting it, and I hate to say that, but it is what it is. So the question that you're talking about is,
Okay.
you want
You,
to say something about how far from the escarpment you have to be, and I'm saying, once a lot has been deemed a buildable lot, it's a buildable lot. So that's why we have words in there like as much as possible, because once a lot is subdivided and it's subdivided
well,
as a buildable
well,
lot,
we didn't, but we took out those words. We took out the soft language and we didn't, and that was one of the earliest things we called because, and again, and you say when a lot is deemed a buildable lot, it's a buildable lot. I don't think that's the case. I think over time, if the law changes because somebody in you know, 100 years ago somehow got a subdivision in there that is dangerous or again conflicts with the law.
so here's, okay. I mean, I think that once you have a subdivision and you've deemed it's a buildable lot, I do believe your grandfather, but we can be arguing about that forever. But in any event, let me send you this version of the document. And I've crossed out I've crossed out what was there. And I'm proposing a new item H that just says, while ensuring, because you have to ensure preservation of the tree canopy and view shed from below and from a distance. Property owners are permitted to preserve the building envelope area that was approved for the property and maintain a clearing around their building to comply with fire safety. And I'm happy to add in there to comply with New York State DEC fire safety guidelines. So if we tell them whose fire safety they're supposed to
I get
go by.
So
what do you think, Jude?
I would just say, while ensuring preservation of the tree canopy and view shed from below and from a distance, property owners are permitted to preserve the building envelope area that was approved for the property and maintain this clearing around their buildings to comply with fire safety.
Oh, maintain this clearing. Okay,
So they
that's
can't just like randomly say, well, I need fire safety, so I need another 100 feet.
right. Maintain this clear. I like that.
You know, and I just limit it to what was approved.
All right.
This approved, I've had this approved clearing.
Mhm. Or the approved clearing. Yeah, whatever.
Okay, well, so let me, and may, I mean, I
All
can,
you got, all I would do is just maybe right at the end of that sentence, just change the color to like purple or something.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter. And write, what is the envelope for the ridge line? 100 feet question mark. And we'll come back to.
As a statement doesn't make sense to me. What is the envelope for the ridge line? The ridge line doesn't, the ridge line has an envelope.
Can you
A
write
house has an envelope. That's where you're able to build the house. Is the envelope, that's where you put the house is in the envelope. But the ridge line, I don't, when you say the ridge line has an envelope,
Well,
that's,
all right. What is we can there are many other words. Threshold. You want to say
You're
threshold?
not
for
saying
protection.
you're saying the distance from the ridge line. Because you know, if it's behind the house, it may not matter as much.
Well, no. I mean, I do think again, it's more about where essentially it doesn't matter where the house is. It matters where the property and where the building envelope ends. Like where does the yard, whatever it is, that is the closest thing to the ridge line, whatever is between the road and the ridge line.
Right.
That has to end at a certain point. We have to say that your building plans need to conform to this thing, this value, like as much as if it whether it's as much as possible or like line in the sand, we need a value.
Well, so I think that what you're saying is you're trying to set some value to say from the ridge line, how many feet away must be preserved to be forest. I think that's what
Yes,
you're saying.
that's exactly what I'm saying.
And I don't think we've ever defined that, how many feet you have to have a forest. And I think it might make a difference because depending on how the ground's sloping, so if we try
I
to,
just again, it's like I don't think we should be I think we should try to have a general framework. And maybe again, to me, 100 feet doesn't even sound like very much, but this is why I think we should raise the question again and look at it, because if we talk to an arborist or somebody who has experience with this, or the town board does, because the town board needs to take this up and look at this pretty granularly, like that needs some definition,
okay.
even if it's 25 feet.
So,
What is the number?
okay. So here's what I think is a good idea. Um, so item H, I've kept in what it used to be and I've crossed it out with a strike through. And I've added my proposed new statement of maintenance that we've adjusted based on our conversation. And my thought is, let me just send this to you and and you can think about it and then email back to us. Here's the words you want and where you want them. So I think if you
Okay.
just propose back with the words you want and where you want them, then we'll start there.
All right. Well, I will. You can feel free to send it to me. I can send it to you now, and if we want to go over it later, that's fine. But
Well, do you have the
I
words already in your mind?
mean, pretty much, it just depends on where we end up putting it in what section. If we want to make mention of it here, it would say, and respecting the prescribed
Okay, well,
distance between the ridge line and the property.
yeah. So, okay, so
But I'll send it. It's fine. Let's if again I would all I wanted to do was put a note there so that when we come back to it, it triggers a conversation.
well, sure, but let me, okay, proposed code. Prior to the issue of the building permit, construction of site, below the section. I'm just trying to reread quickly a lot of this stuff. I mean, especially use permit if you're gonna be doing this, that, the other thing. The proposed development shall include the following measures. And this is for new development, shall include the following measures. Minimization of cut and fill activity and effective vegetation restoration of all disturbed areas. The use of building materials, colors, we talk about that. Reflective windows, we're gonna avoid that. Get rid of glare. Respect for natural features, including foliage, drainage ways and contours. Prohibition, yeah, and this is where we were, the prohibition of development along and or projecting above ridge lines. So I think it would go there, because we're saying you want to prohibit development along and projecting above ridge lines, but then and including X number of feet away from the ridge line. Right? So that's what you're saying, is you want to include that they have to avoid. But I'm saying you may have some lots that were deemed to be building lots, and I do believe they would be grandfathered.
So and this could certainly be and again, I think that's a perfectly good use of the courts, like whatever their fear of that is. Sometimes, these things, there are a few cases that need to get hashed out, or they go to the planning board and get a special use permit and document it, but it's totally handleable. Here's my suggestion on language,
Okay.
wherever it goes. The distance between the scenic overlay, in parentheses, the physical ridge line, close
Well,
parentheses.
I'm writing it down, so go slow. The distance between the scenic
I'm just gonna send it to you right now.
overlay.
It should be in your email in about 2 seconds.
Okay, so I'm gonna stop sharing while I go find my email.
It's but just yes. I'll just read it though. The distance between the scenic overlay, and I used commas, but I think in parentheses, the physical ridge line, close parentheses, and the building envelope of any building envelope of any application must preserve 100 feet of forest between their closest parts. That 100 feet, think of it as an X, but it's just a number.
Yeah, okay. So let me go see if I can find, I haven't been on this.
You know, some of those lots way up on California Quarry Road, they're, I don't know how big they are, but they're pretty vertical. I don't know if they've all been developed or not, but they were the ones that were super visible. And that, of course, subdivision was done.
Laura, I'm gonna put it in the chat just to keep this straight.
Oh, the chat in our Zoom?
Yeah.
That's a good
Yes.
idea, because I'll see it faster then. I'm looking for the chat for the Zoom.
Application must preserve. I spell ridgeline wrong.
I haven't seen it yet, so
All right,
maybe, I don't know.
okay, so uh okay.
There we go. Okay, so, all right, so let me go see if I can find there we go. Okay, and I'm gonna share my screen in just a moment. Okay. There we go, sharing my screen. All right, so I just popped that right in here. There we go. Yeah, the prohibition of development along and or projecting above ridge lines, the distance between the scenic overlay, the physical ridge line, and the building envelope of any application must preserve 100 feet of forest between their closest parts. So that's what we added. Yeah, this in addition was already.
Yeah. Now, and again, I would still somewhere put a note for the town board to consider that 100 foot uh number with perhaps a forester or somebody.
Mhm,
But if we have something in there
mhm.
to lay uh a boundary and a clear delineation, I think that is enormous. Um and
Yeah,
think
and
that's it.
I'm just gonna say feet, right? I'm just gonna spell it out here. Um, feet of forest between their closest parts, preserve
Maybe another way to say that, but I know exactly what you're saying.
the distance between the scenic overlay, the physical ridge line.
Between their closest boundary, whatever.
Well, and I would, can I take out, because you're saying it's the physical ridge line, because if I say the scenic, that's confusing to me. I'm gonna take out the word scenic overlay and keep the words the physical ridge line.
Sure.
Okay, so the distance between the physical ridge line, the distance between the physical ridge line and the building envelope of
Mm.
any application, do we want to building envelope, should we say property rather than the
Or
application?
Can
of
we
any,
say
yeah.
something like the building envelope must preserve 100 feet of forest?
You could, if you
You know
want to
what
get
I'm
rid of
saying?
application,
Yeah.
I would say you could replace it with site plan um or building.
Of any proposed building, of any building.
Uh, yeah, or site plan for the, because I mean that's what
Okay,
ostensibly these things are supposed to be the same as the site plan.
right.
Oh no, no. The physical ridge line and the building envelope of any site plan instead of application.
Mhm. Okay, the distance between the ridge line and the building envelope of any site plan. Mhm. The distance between the ridge line and the building envelope of any, can I say of any building's site plan? Or just the building envelope of any site
I
plan?
I think any site plan, because
Okay.
this covers all kinds of development, you know.
Okay. Well, I say we throw it in there. I say we throw it in there and
All right, I appreciate it. If you want to highlight the 100 feet as a, because I don't want to. That's a fire from the hip number. I don't want to say that's what we should stick with. It's just I think something has to be there.
Can it
oh, you
just,
mean,
can it just say something like the building envelope of any site plan must be at least 100 feet from the ridge line?
That's essentially what it says,
I
right?
know, but it's just clearer than between their closest parts.
Well, I mean, between their closest. So maybe no, so maybe in addition, instead of closest parts, 100 feet of between there.
must be a minimum of 100 feet from the physical ridge line. So must be a minimum, the building envelope of any site plan must be at minimum 100 feet from the physical ridge line. Isn't that just the same thing?
I mean, again, I think it is essentially the same thing. What you're saying,
Oh.
it's just a little, we're trying to make it sound a little better, right?
But yeah, but I think it's a little simpler to say it that way, because when you do talk
Building
about the
envelope of
closest
any site
parts,
plan
if
must
you
be.
just say the building envelope of any site plan must be at a minimum.
But I do think we should keep in the forest part of it. The purpose being, screening, not just distance. I just like the preserving 100 feet of forest. Preserve is, I think, a very operative word. Yeah.
I think that's good.
So we're okay with that? So
Yeah. I
I'll get
mean,
rid of that. So I'm gonna bold this because it's new. Okay. So we've said the building envelope of any site plan must preserve at a minimum 100 feet of forest from the physical ridge line.
yeah. And whether that becomes 50 or 30, whatever some hopefully trained professional thinks is reasonable.
So, and I'm kind of wondering whether we ought to make a new E, because should we take this and make it its own item? Because it'll take, it may be confusing.
I really feel like it's pretty clarifying for that first sentence, don't
So
you
it's
think?
fine. So you think it's fine to keep all this in the same item?
You're just saying break it up into different letters.
Yeah, I'm saying,
But it's a
what if,
lot to look at. I think that's okay to do.
to break it up so that,
Yes,
I could go either way. I
people don't like to read.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's the thing. If you broke it up into numbers, I feel like that's appropriate. But it is kind of the same thing. It's about
Right.
the restriction of development. So
well, other visually prominent, because you say the
I
ridge
like
line.
I like keeping them together because it feels like this is
Okay,
a contiguous chunk of information that should be close to each other, so people don't have to go looking for the other piece.
okay, all right.
But I don't mind doing one and two if that's
Well, yeah, it can be difficult to make it do what you want it to do. So that's why
okay.
I just demonstrated. It's hard to make it do what you want it to do.
Got it.
So anyway, so we have a new section. Okay, A1D is we just added this bold stuff here, but then we've also taken A1H, and I don't know whether, are you okay now that we add the other thing? Are you okay with this new H? While ensuring preservation of the tree canopy and view shed from below and from a distance, you're permitted to preserve the building envelope area that was approved for the property and maintain the
Yeah.
approved clearing
Yeah,
around the
because
building.
we've added that clarity elsewhere. I mean, again, because it,
Yeah,
it refers to the building envelope, it's all feeding into each
yeah.
other.
And I might
And
say
so-
instead of to comply with fire safety, just say for fire
Yeah.
safety.
I
The
was just
reason,
going to suggest that, right?
because being that we're not, if we
Um,
say to comply with, we have to have something we're complying with.
I was just going to say the same thing.
Okay, cool. Okay, so we're okay now taking out these words. And let me just put this where it should go. Okay, so we have a new H. Okay. A1H. So why don't I send this to both of you? Because I don't want to send it anywhere before you will have all looked at it again. So why don't I send it off and then we can all look at it again. and then we're gonna meet in 2 weeks.
Make sure.
Or you can look at it, maybe email me and let me know whether you're ready for it. So, and I guess,
Yeah, if you send it, I'll email you. I shouldn't need too much time. I've reviewed this a
okay,
bunch now. We didn't
right,
make that
right,
many
okay,
changes.
okay. So I'll look for emails from each of you, and my email's a little funny. It seems to be filtering out some emails. I don't know why it's doing that, but anyway, if I don't respond to your email, text me and say, look for your email. There've been a few cases where I search on somebody's email and it shows up in the list. But if I just look at my inbox, for some reason it's not there. But if I search on the person, then I see it, which is a little odd. So,
Have you been archiving things on accident?
no,
Is-
no, I don't think so. No, no,
That's
I mean, people,
usually what that means is that it got archived.
yeah, yeah, except for the fact it's new stuff.
No, yeah, that's if it's weird if somehow you got a label coming in to archive things as they come in, that would be bad, but
Oh, maybe they're,
that's
yeah,
maybe look into that.
yeah, that's a good point. Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. So, okay. So anyway, I'll send this to each of you and you can send me an email back saying it looks okay to you. I guess from a process standpoint, uh, I guess since we changed some things that are a little substantive, we should send it back to the planning board. We resolved the one thing. We broke about, yeah, that prohibition.
Can
We
I
made it clear
can
that,
I don't necessarily agree with that. We've sent this to the planning board multiple times. We've now considered everything. I mean, we've made the changes, and again, the I just have a feeling that in the due diligence of the town board, the planning board is going to get another crack at this.
well, I guess I'd rather just say, hey, we had these two outstanding things to fix. Here is what we did with them. Because what's going to happen when it goes back, but because I think we've totally resolved their issue here with item H, because they have nothing to do with it. They don't have to do SUPs and nobody is going to take them to court. So item H, I feel very comfortable we fixed the problem. Item D, I think we fixed their problem by breaking the sentences up and saying, this is prohibited. And also this is
I
to, so,
I understand. I gotta say, I love you guys. If the planning board ever watches this session, I love you guys, but I'd like to see this go to the town board.
but
I
the
would be.
100 feet, my issue is we added the 100 feet and the planning board didn't have any
I
way
don't.
in on that.
I just don't think the planning board is necessarily the body to ask that question of,
Mm,
because I think that the lens we should be looking through from that is forester or forestry, like what is both safe and generally, accepted in
mm,
terms of that
mm,
distance threshold.
mm,
Because we've talked about it when I was on the planning board, and I
mm,
mean, it's ultimately it is an arbitrary number, and I really, really feel like, again, keeping everything in daylight and moving
mm.
forward, like that is that we don't need to take another 2 weeks to 4 weeks to hear back from them on that number.
Yeah,
It's
okay,
going to come out in the wash.
okay. All right.
Personally,
Jude, how do you feel?
I agree with Connor. The thing is, what you're talking about, though, to me, is the 100 feet is the screening. The distance of what the fire safety is, that's another question, or how big the building envelope should be. That's a different question. We're talking about 100 feet of screening,
Yeah.
right?
yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know that that's something that I mean, I don't know, maybe an arborist could tell you if that's enough. It probably depends what the trees are, but
Mhm.
I don't think it needs to go back to them.
Yeah, okay.
We've gone back twice and I think we've addressed their
We worked very
concern.
hard to address, yes.
And
John, Peter, and Judy, I love you guys so much. I just know you're gonna see it again. I know it.
yeah,
Yeah, okay. Okay. Um, okay. So, for now, what we did, you guys know it's in bold red. When I send it back when I send this on again, I'm gonna take the bold out because the point is of what I'm saying is the red is, because this has already been to the town board once, and the red is to indicate to them what has changed since they saw it last. So at the moment, the bold red is what you guys are looking at, what's changed. Before I send it off to the town board, I will be making the bold, taking the bold out. It'll still be red because it's still stuff
Well,
they didn't see.
all I'll say from here is I'm sure that it won't take me very long to review this, and in the meantime, I don't know if we have to vote on it. I don't think so, but as can we approve sending this to the town, back to the
Yeah,
town board
yeah. And in
now
fact,
or via email?
yeah, we can do it via email, I'd say.
Okay.
So do it via email. And I think what I am going to do actually, I am not going to take the bold out. And just when I email it to you, I'm just going to tell you the two sections that we did tonight that you might want to
Mm.
look at. And
Well, I remember. I've
yeah,
gone through this so many
yeah.
times.
So it's D and H, but and sorry, the H is supposed to be bolded here because it's go back. That's bolded. But, and that way, when I do send it to town board, I won't be changing anything from what you saw.
Okie dokie.
So, but I know we kind of took the summer off, but thank you both so much for, I feel good about this. And I know we'll all be excited to get this moving forward. And I'll be happy to see the fence law get moving forward. And we've had, as you might have noticed, as you're, if you paid attention to the town or read any papers or anyway, we've had a lot of excitement at the town board. So hopefully we're moving on from that so we can get some more progress on things. So anyway, hopefully we can get, it should be I'm feeling pretty confident about getting the fence law pushed forward. I'm feeling like, the main question people on the town board asked me before was, how did the planning board feel? And as you both have acknowledged, and me too, we spent a lot of time addressing what the planning board wanted. I even went and visited with the planning board to get more information about what their concerns were. So, and we resolved all their concerns except the two things we just talked about tonight. So I feel like we've resolved what the town board asked us to do, which is the planning board in the boat, and we've worked very hard to resolve their items. So anyway, so good. So I'll send this to the two of you and also Joe, but a quorum will move it forward. And I agree. And as soon as you both tell me that you're happy, we're gonna send it forward.
Great.
Well, you can definitely expect that in the next 24 hours, I'd say.
Sounds good. And then the other document that I'll have, this is the side by side, but then what I do is I lift out, there's the document that makes it a law, because this document just has, what's in the law, but then you've got the law document actually has the first couple of sections, and the last one, like severability, if anything changes, it doesn't affect anything else, blah, blah, blah. So I'll be sending, when I send it to the town board, I'll send two versions, this side by side version, but also the version that is actually the law that only has the stuff on the left that won't have colors. That is what we're proposing get forwarded. So, and oh, your puppy dog. How's your puppy dog doing?
Oh, she is good.
And how old is she now?
She is oh wow, 6. She was 2019, so 6 years old now.
I think I remember when she was a pup.
Yep, yep. And still very good and still very bad, and I love her very much.
Yeah, that's the way dogs, and my cats are the same way, I have to tell you. They're
Yep.
very good, but they can be very bad. So, but we've all figured out how to get along.
And she's telling me it's time for foods.
Yeah, okay. Well, thanks to both of you. So we have our next meeting is scheduled for 2 weeks from tonight. And so I think we'll take a stab at what we're doing with STRs. So
All
I think
right.
now that we got scenic overlay out of the way and fences out of the way, which are kind of easy things to do
Yeah, well,
comparatively, we'll start chit-chatting about STRs and see where it
all
goes.
right. All right, sounds good. I'll see you in 2 weeks, but
And,
I'll talk to you tomorrow.
and I'm sure we have a motion to adjourn, right?
So moved.
So moved. There we go. Laura Connor, and at 8
Everybody, good
o'clock,
night.
we're done. Thank you both. Have a great night.
Good night.